Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about Tinto Talks 40 for Project Caesar, aka EU5. And this week, Johan's going to talk to us about government reforms and give us some specific examples of some of these that you will see in the game once it is released. And as always, we're just going to get straight into it. So representing everything from ancient traditions to progressive amendments, government reforms in EU5 outline the shape of the governance in a country. Each one is unique, but they often give powerful trade-offs or open up unique play styles. At the start of the game, countries are allowed 2 government reforms, but in every age there are at least one advance that unlocks an additional slot for reforms. Some specific reforms also add an additional slot, so these are essentially free for your country. On average, in the final age of the game, a country may have between 7 or 8 reforms, depending on which options they've chosen, what kind of country they are, all those kind of things. So there is some variance during your campaigns. And if you played EU4, I think a lot of the things you'll see here aren't too crazy from that game, but this is an evolution of how the system worked in that version of Europa Universalis. So common government reforms that are available to everyone are likely to have an age requirement, spreading out their availability over the game. Some reforms are major reforms, and a country may not have more than one major reform at the same time. There is also a diverse selection of reforms in each age, with about 5 common new ones added each age, and another 2 per government type. So there's a lot of flexibility in the system. A lot of ways, as I've said through all these dev diaries, I think, from what we've seen so far, it looks like even playing the same country, as we're all aware, there are players of EU that just play the same country forever, and it looks like, especially in this version of the game, you're going to be able to make like different versions of the same country depending on what options you've chosen in all these different systems, and it looks like government reforms again. Similar to EU4 in a way, you can change your country to be something different each time, and you do get different bonuses, different play styles from making those choices. And then as Johan says, the unique ones are far more plentiful and diverse, and there are over 150 of these in the game at the moment. So again, there's going to be a bunch of these options you can choose, unlocks. Some of them are going to be locked between different flavorful things for different countries, of course, but it looks like even if you're playing a, general country in the launch of the game, at least anyway, there are going to be these different ways to play the game. In the user interface, the government reforms exist in the crown parts of the estate screen, as the crown does not really have any estate privileges. I think that does make sense. And you can see here the UI. I will say this UI has changed. I think this was about 10 developer diaries ago. They showed this exact screen off about how the estates worked. Maybe it was even longer ago, I don't know, time has no meaning these days. But as you can see, it has had some changes to it. I think the icons are different now, and just the overall layout. So again, as I always say, the UI that we are shown isn't going to be the end game UI. It is improving slowly, and as I've said from the beginning really, the UI is one of the last things that ever gets kind of improved in a game, because there's no point putting loads of work into the UI, and then that part of the UI just no longer exists, it gets taken out, that whole system gets redone, and then you've got to redesign the UI again. That is why it's generally just placeholder until you get into like the final months of the game, and then you get all the improvements then. Once they have everything locked down, this is definitely how it's going to work, then we can put the effort into making it look as good as it can. The UI as it looks now, yes, I don't think it looks that good. It does show everything you need, which again is what they need at this point in development, but I hope it does look substantially better than this once it actually gets released, which again, I'm sure it will. If you look at Imperator Rome, it had some issues at launch for sure, but the UI, especially with the 2.0 launch as well, just looks really, really nice. And I think every Paradox game, at least the more recent ones, have had usable, nice UIs. Crusader Kings, Victoria, all these games I think have nice UIs that are at least legible, look quite good for the era, and give you all the information that you need. So we will see that with EU5, I am sure. But getting back to this specific UI, as he was just saying, you can see the crown at the top. That is the bit with the reforms. You can see in this example, I think they have 2 of the 3 they have available selected. I guess for whatever reason, they haven't chosen the 3rd one. And then that is where you can slot in a new one. And that is the difference it's going to be. And the ones below, as he mentioned, they are the estate privileges for the relevant estate. You can see the nobles have a bunch of them there, but the clergy not quite as many privileges. So again, I think the UI looks nice. You can see at a glance what they've got. Once it is improved, it's going to look even better, but the functionality is there at least at this point. Currently removing a government reform costs 20 stability, which is pretty cheap, but that may change in the future. Again, with all these dev diaries, a lot of balancing to happen before the game comes out. Some reforms cannot be removed at will though, and are locked until specific circumstances allow them to be removed. Adding a new reform does not have any cost, but it does take up to 2 years for the benefits to be fully implemented. Again, something we've seen with other things in the game. It isn't a case of you press a button, something immediately happens in these systems. It takes time for the effects of those changes to kind of percolate around your realm to get the full reward of having that. And then, as Johan mentioned, there are kind of like different tiers of reform, and the first ones he's going to show off here are common reforms. These are examples of early government reforms that many nations have access to at the beginning of the game. The first one being religious tolerance. For when your country is populated by people who practice different beliefs and confessions, therefore it will be prudent to govern in a tolerant manner towards them, ensuring their support for the government, or of course, you could decide not to do that. This is, as he mentioned, religious tolerance, monthly progress to communalism, 0.1, tolerance of heretical beliefs, tolerance of heathen beliefs, +1, very similar to modifiers like this you've seen Crusader Kings, EU4, all those kind of games that they have out already. The next one is diplomatic traditions. For time immemorial, our people have favoured the word above the sword, giving us the ability to forge lasting relationships with our allies and friends and a reputation as honest and loyal. Monthly progress towards conciliary, 0.1. If you're not sure what that top one is, same with the one above. They are the societal beliefs that Johan talked about 2 weeks ago. I have a video on that if you're interested. Really like how the world sees your country. So this is conciliary. If you go the other way, you're seen as like more warfare-like, always trying to take land off people. Conciliary, your country is seen as being peaceful, diplomatic, all those kind of things as well. So this is how you can kind of switch them towards one or the other very slowly. The other two bonuses is diplomatic reputation +3, diplomatic capacity +1. This is going to be very good if you are playing that diplomatic country. Next one is military order. This is a major reform that Catholic theocracies have access to. It is one of the types of reforms that truly defines a country. The military orders were created in the Middle Ages as a militant body of the Catholic Church. Its members are both warriors and monks who have taken religious vows and are destined to defend and expand Christianity. So really calling back to the government dev diary there. Yes, you can play as theocracies in this game at launch, something we still don't have in Crusader Kings, but in this game, you're going to have it from as soon as you play the game. And you can see here, military order, monthly progress towards belligerent, that is the opposite of the one above. Monthly progress towards offensive, again, an offensive versus a defensive realm. Clergy levy size, maybe target of military sponsorships, yes. Clergy allowed to lead, yes. So this is obviously, as Johan says, very much playing into a holy order, having all those cool things, being able to be sponsored, having that large clergy, having the clergy being allowed to lead the realm, and obviously being quite offensive and belligerent towards other faiths, which they were in real life. So again, a very good example here shown off here. Next is going to talk to us about unique government reforms. So the first one is family sagas. This is a unique reform that anyone with the primary culture of Icelandic can get, which both Iceland and Greenland start with. Our ancient sagas passed orally through the generations, tell of adventurous expeditions to a distant or wild land over the Western Sea. Maybe one day we will follow in their footsteps. I'm not sure what this is talking about. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Obviously, I do know, really. So as we can see here, family sagas can recruit explorers, yes. Can invite settlers, yes. Monthly progress to naval, allows exploration missions and cultural traditions. So this is going to allow these two places at the start of the game to actually go and explore the world and really refine these lands that they found previously. The problem here, you're playing in Iceland, Greenland. You're not going to have the population to then actually make use of that much. But maybe you could make use of it in other ways. You can still grab some land. It's going to be very hard to colonize it versus when the major nations start to discover the new world. But maybe you can make some use of this. Maybe you can get some trade out of it. Maybe you could even sell your maps to another country as you have found these places. But it is a cool, unique reform here. I really like this one. This is a good example to show off. The next one is 3 departments. This is available to any country that has Chinese or Korean as their court language. The 3-department system originates from the ancient Chinese empires and is the primary administrative structure of the state. All departments focus on several aspects of the process of drafting, establishing, and revisiting state policies. And as you can see here, set policy cost is a third cheaper, change policy cost is 10% cheaper, and the admin efficiency is also 10% higher. This is pretty good, actually, especially if you are wanting to change laws. It is a very good reform to have. The last one, a very famous one, especially if you're from where I am, Magna Carta. This is a unique reform that the English start with, and it is also possible for any country with the English primary culture or if their overlord has this reform. The Great Charter is a constitutional law that distributes power away from the monarch and towards the barons. First signed in 1215, it is one of the earliest documents to enshrine the idea of civil liberties such as the right to a fair trial and the protection against illegal imprisonment. This is very, very famous. I'm sure a lot of Europeans and maybe Americans know about this, but if you're from England like me, You learn about this a lot during your education, whether that's good or bad, the amount of times it's actually covered. And you can see here, Magna Carta, government reform, monthly progress towards free subjects 0.10, monthly progress towards individualism plus 0.10, nobles power plus 20%, parliament base support plus 10%. So yes, you are giving more power to the nobles, but I guess they then see that you've given that power to them. So it isn't all bad. This will obviously unlock additional things further down your campaigns as well, if you play as England or anyone with English as their primary culture as well. So again, another cool example to give. And as you said earlier, there are lots and lots of these in the game, so you can really kind of skew your country into a way you want to play it. And then there are these flavorful ones for specific countries. Again, kind of how we saw in EU4, but it looks like it's been fleshed out that a little bit more in this version of the game. And with all of that being said, that is the end of the dev diary this week. Not a huge one, but it has been good to see this government reform system and how it's going to work. Johan says next week they're going to talk about all the different types of parliaments and how you interact with them. Maybe we'll get some Civil War hints in that dev diary as well. But as always, I'm sure it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say about parliaments. But with all that, that is the end of the video for today. Do hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new here. I'm covering EU5 up to official announcement, launch and beyond. And I cover Crusader Kings in a very similar manner. So do hit subscribe if you've enjoyed it, but we'll leave it there, and I'll see you in the next one.